My dear friend of mine, Mr. Griffin, really got me into watching Lucha Underground. So I really want to do a video like this for a while now, do the comparison between Lucha Underground and WWE. But instead of doing like which is better, I decided to do the pros and cons of the WWE as well as the pros and cons of Lucha Underground. So before I get started with the cons, let's get started first with the pros. Now, I know you guys are wondering, what pros for WWE? Are you kidding me? How bad it is now? Yes, they do have pros, people. And one of their pros is NXT. NXT is pretty much the heart of what true wrestling really is. How it was back in the day during the Golden Era. But way before the Attitude Era. The Golden Era, where it was a lot more focused on the character than it was the overall dialogue, the overall storyline. It was focused on how dynamic the character was. And that's how it is now at NXT. You got a lot of creative characters that will not only fuse one style of fighting for another style and actually make that character work, they're fun. It is absolutely fun to watch these guys perform, let alone watch these guys be on the mic. It's fun, what wrestling used to be. And that's why I enjoy it so much. Not to mention the Divas division alone is the reason why I watch NXT. By far, one of the main events of NXT TakeOver, in my opinion, was Charlotte versus Natalya. By far, main event. Having both of her uncle Brett on one side and her dad Ric Flair on the other side, Charlotte's dad on the other side, and of course Natalya's uncle on one side. That was a really hard. Just that whole match. I can't even talk. The whole match was driven by heart. And you can tell that all the wrestlers that actually do perform at NXT put their heart into what they do. And that's why I really like that product. And I have to give kudos to Triple H because that happens to be his baby. Another baby that I really think is a huge pro is a tag team division. The tag team division is starting to build itself up so very well. To where you have a lot of dynamic characters come together, whether you like them or hate them. They are somewhat interesting to watch for some people, some more than others. But either or, besides the whole characters and all that other stuff, their wrestling is phenomenal. The chemistry between two different types of tag team performers are phenomenal. They are well trained when it comes to that, let alone it just looks like they're putting on their A game every night. I have to say the one tag team that's starting to impress me now is definitely Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. That tag team alone is really starting to impress me, and it really shows me that they really do know how to pair up their tag teams, and they know how to find tag teams with great chemistry. And I really think that that is a huge, huge plus. But moving on to Lucha Underground. By far, Lucha Underground is a lot more aggressive than WWE. By far. Not to mention that they're not afraid to do things different. I will say, yeah, they are aggressive towards the luchadores. But the luchadores, they actually have luchadores that wrestle men on a daily basis, as well as having them pretty much somewhat manhandled in a match. Not that I'm saying that they should be manhandled. I'm saying that if these women are literally going to this business to be luchadores, they need to be treated like luchadores instead of being treated like fragile women. And they're not. They're tough as nails. Everybody who is a luchador or luchadora at Lucha Underground are tough as nails. You can tell. Not to mention that their matches are extra brutal. And I pretty much emphasize that. But the one thing I love the most about Lucha Underground is the fact that they don't really put so much emphasis on the storyline, but put emphasis on the characters and the matches. That is what really is the jewel of this entire show, is they put more emphasis on the performers and the matches and not so much the dialogue and storyline. They do have dialogue and they do have a little bit of storyline, but it doesn't oversaturate the entire show. That's what makes me enjoy it the most. But let's go on from the pros to the cons of both these companies. I can go on and on and on and on and on for days how many cons that WWE has right now. But let's focus on the main cons of the WWE. Not so much everything, but the main cons that are causing a lot of problems with this company alone. Number one, the power struggles. Instead of allowing one person to take over one bit and allowing the other person to take over the other, or at least back out, it is a clash. It is bad enough that Vince McMahon and Paul Levesque are literally butting heads pretty much every single week when it comes to Raw and when it comes to SmackDown, because you can tell that the show is not consistent. When they actually go in another direction on SmackDown, all of a sudden 24 hours later, they actually change the entire show and things don't really stay consistent. So I guess I could pretty much say, instead of it being power struggle, it's more of consistency. Nothing is really consistent anymore when it comes to WWE. Number 2, favoritism between certain characters. Can we say that John Cena at one time used to be the favorite, the company's favorite to go to? He's not really so much anymore. It's all about Roman Reigns. And don't get me wrong, if it wasn't for how bad the Rumble was and how one-sided it was for the Superstar of the Year, Roman Reigns probably wouldn't be in the mess he's in now. But unfortunately, when it comes to pushes, they push way too hard, way too early. Look at Ryback. Ryback is practically struggling to get his 15 minutes of fame, and nobody cares. No one still cares. And we can't really complain much about Cena, because Cena is starting to really fall off the radar. And it's more focused on Roman Reigns than anyone else. Not to mention the fact that, let's go on to number 3 here. They underuse a lot of good characters. Can we say that they don't really push Bray Wyatt as well as Bo Dallas a lot more than they used to? And people are like, oh no, what about his thing with Taker? Let's be real. When it comes to Bray Wyatt, he is pretty much holding up an entire feud all on his own that may not lead to a match at all. So honestly, do I really think that they're pushing him? No. He's more of an interesting character, and I think they're just throwing him out there just to be fodder to The Undertaker when he actually comes back, whenever that may be. And Bo Dallas, he had like an interesting streak, and this whole believe thing was kind of interesting, but then Bo Dallas kind of fell out quickly. And then we got, let's say Dolph Ziggler, and dare I say Daniel Bryan? I don't know. There's many other characters that are actually back there waiting to get their 15 minutes. And I guess I could say Zack Ryder too, because Zack Ryder is that good. He's not just there just for entertainment, people. He actually is that good. But nonetheless, there are a lot of people in the behind the scenes that are waiting to actually get their 15 minutes. And they're still back there waiting and having other people with a certain kind of look be pushed before them. And also, can we move on to number 4? Lack of fun and variety. They're pretty much just reusing and rehashing something that's worked many years ago but doesn't work now. Not to mention, it's really stale and stagnant, and you can tell that some of the people that work there aren't having that much fun anymore. What happened to the fun? What happened to going to a wrestling match, having a few laughs, and then seeing a good match? You barely see a few laughs. And if there are laughs, the laughs don't really last that long. It's so corny, so hokey, and so childish. You're like, when is this going to be over? Come on. And dare I say number 5. Far too long promos. I'm sorry. When it comes to storyline, okay, let's say not only promos, but also storyline. I'm going to tack that in there. Or maybe I have that for number 6. Okay, let's go on to number 5 for promos. The promos do go way too freaking long. And some of the promos that are actually on there have absolutely no point of even being on there in the first place. We have a lot of promos out there that either have to save the match, or, like, I guess, for example, the promo that Paul Heyman gave right after Daniel Bryan kind of put over Roman Reigns made no sense whatsoever without Brock Lesnar there. It should have been canceled that whole night. It shouldn't have happened at all, but it went on. It was uncomfortably stupid, and I kind of wish that it was just over. And then let's go on to number 6. Too much emphasis on storyline. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a type of person that likes to have substance in my shows. Yeah, and then this is something about wrestling. But regardless of that, I really do believe that WWE puts far too much emphasis on storyline and storytelling instead of putting enough emphasis on the characters as well as the performances with the little storyline in it. There's just way too much storyline, way too much dialogue, way too much emphasis like a soap opera. It needs to be a wrestling show. Let's move on to number 7. Wrestling isn't a bad word, especially this is what your company does. Vince McMahon is doing his best to stay away from the word wrestling and stick to the sports entertainment. I guess he's trying to be a little bit more broad instead of just being a wrestling show. But Vince, it's a wrestling show, dude. There's nothing you can do to get around it. You make your money off of wrestlers daily. So you really need to stop shunning away from wrestling and actually just stick to wrestling and just call it that and not be ashamed. But let's move on from the cons, because there's a ton of WWE cons I have not gotten into. But if you guys know a lot of cons about the WWE, put it in the comments below. Want to hear what you guys think. But let's go on to the cons of Lucha Underground. Now, there is cons for Lucha Underground. Maybe not as many as the WWE, but there are cons. It's great that they actually put emphasis on the wrestlers and less emphasis on the storyline. But here are two things that Lucha Underground lacks badly. Number one, there is absolutely no reason to have referees in the ring whatsoever. They have zero control, zero clout. They have zero anything, any reason to be in a match at all. Pretty much every single match for Lucha Underground is no holds barred. The only reason why a referee should be there is to count 1, 2, 3, and that's it. They have absolutely no control of the match. They have no control of what the wrestlers do to them. It's pretty much, in my opinion, no reason for them to be there, except for having one on the outside of the ring counting 1, 2, 3. That's it. And also, number two, there are only two luchadoras in the entire Lucha Underground show that has been seen. We can't count the wannabe valets that come out there. We gotta talk about the actual performers. And there's only two. There's not enough to even make a division. And don't get me wrong, the luchadors are just as hardcore as the luchadors. But I would like to actually see some kind of a division pulled out of this. But there's none. There's only two. And also leading up to number 3, no tag teams. 0 tag team matches, y'all. They're just now getting a steel cage match put in there. But they absolutely have no tag teams at all. I mean, come on, where's the variety? Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love seeing a luchador or a luchadora performing in the ring. It's phenomenal, whether or not they're masked or unmasked, whether or not they're heel or face. I don't remember the Spanish names for them, but come on, have a little bit of variety. It would be nice to actually see some tag teams, but there are none. But either or, I still love both shows, whether good or bad. These shows are actually good. And for those that have not seen Lucha Underground, but are a fan of wrestling, especially lucha wrestling, my advice for you guys is to actually watch Lucha Underground. If you don't have the El Rey Network, definitely check it out on YouTube. It is great. You will not be disappointed. But I want to hear your thoughts. What are your pros and cons for Lucha Underground for those who have watched it, or the WWE? Pros and cons. I want to hear y'all's thoughts. Leave a comment in the comment section below, or send me a video response of what you think about both of these companies. Which is better in your opinion, the pros and cons? And yeah, I stuck the pros and cons, but if you want to say which is better, you are up to that. I will let you guys have that. But either or, I want to hear your thoughts. It's Nature Girl 30 signing off. Peace out, y'all. Later.